Thank you for joining us and welcome to this webinar titled Septic System 101. This is a webinar for SepticSmart 2024 and it's presented by my coworker Ann Mitchell and I. Ann Mitchell's also got the camera on in the corner there. Ann and I are both environmental quality analysts working with Eagle's on-site wastewater management unit. I'm going next. Here's the overview for today's presentation. As you can see from the overview, we are going to get deep into the subject of on-site wastewater, also known as septic systems. We'll start with discussing what SepticSmart is, go over the components of what makes up a septic system, discuss ongoing maintenance tips for your system, and finally, a quick review of Michigan's septic replacement loan program. For the on-site wastewater unit, there are 8 dedicated staff to this unit. We support Michigan's local health departments and the on-site industry by providing program-specific training to local health departments and the private sector, soils trainings to local health department staff, advise on conventional and alternative on-site wastewater treatment, and perform oversight of the septic replacement loan program. So what is SepticSmart? Historically, septic systems have had a culture of bury 'em and forget 'em. To counter this, SepticSmart is a nationwide public education effort by the EPA with outreach activities and resources for homeowners, local organizations, and government leaders to encourage homeowners and communities to care for and maintain their septic systems. This is Michigan's 7th annual SepticSmart proclamation. We seek these governor's proclamations as they give legitimacy to our SepticSmart outreach and activities throughout the year. First, let's kick off this presentation by showing our quick Enviro Minute that was created by our staff, as it gives a quick review of basics to get us started.
Hi, I'm Dale.
And I'm Christine.
We specialize in septic systems.
That's right, we work with treating poop.
When you gotta go, you gotta go.
But where does it go?
When you flush a toilet, some pipes lead to a treatment plant.
But for others, you may have a septic system in your backyard.
Let's learn more.
Start the clock. After your poop takes a water slide ride into your septic tank, natural bacteria will help break down this stuff, but they can only eat so much.
Everything the bacteria doesn't eat piles up in the tank over time. So remember to pump out your septic tank or the poop may try to bring the party back into your house.
Ew! Meanwhile, liquid from the septic tank gets pushed out into something called a drain field. These pipes push wastewater through holes into a layer of gravel.
This is where bacteria helps clean it before it filters through the soil and into our groundwater. But your septic system needs your help to do the best job possible.
Start with these 3 SepticSmart tips.
Number 1, protect it and inspect it. Have your septic tank pumped as necessary.
Number 2, think at the sink. Don't use a garbage disposal.
Number 3, don't overload your commode. Stop flushing things like wipes.
For more information on septic systems and how you can be septic smart, check out our website.
And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more episodes of the
My Enviro Minute.
Thanks for watching.
So let's talk a bit about Michigan and why SepticSmart is important. Well, to start, Michigan has over 1.3 million septic systems, which represents approximately 260 million gallons of wastewater a day being recycled into our environment. This wastewater is recycled either to replenish our aquifers or ends up in our surface waters. Currently, 35% of Michigan's population utilizes septic systems, and approximately 50% of all new construction houses have septic systems. Therefore, we need to do it right by maintaining these systems. In the local Midwest, you can see that Michigan has a greater number of on-site systems as compared to the neighboring states. In 2023, there were approximately 15,000 septic permits issued by local health departments. Septic systems are part of the water cycle. Whatever water we release into the system is eventually reused. This graphic demonstrates how septic systems and wells are connected to groundwater, and later the surface water through the flow of groundwater. This visual just shows the different timeframes for recharge into the aquifers, also known as the water table. Where there are confining layers such as clay, and the deeper aquifers generally see longer periods of time before surface water reaches them. Groundwater is an important resource in Michigan. There are estimated 1.2 million wells in Michigan. About 45% of Michiganders rely on wells for their drinking water, many of those being small and mid-sized communities utilizing wells, such as Lansing and Kalamazoo. Also, 25% of Michigan residents are served by private wells. Our surface water is also important. Michigan is home to 4 of 5 Great Lakes, 6.5 million acres of wetland that support some of our rarest plants and animals, 11,000 inland lakes, over 76,000 miles of rivers, and 1,200 public and private beaches. In Michigan, we have many natural resources to protect. When properly managed, septic systems are capable of being cost-effective, long-term options for meeting public health and water quality goals. So what is a septic system? A septic system is an underground wastewater treatment system. All wastewater treatment systems, whether it's municipal system for a city or a single-family on-site system, include a collection system, treatment components, and dispersion into the environment. In this image of a septic system, number 1 is the building sewer or collection system, leading to number 2, the septic tank, which is the first step in the treatment system, followed by the drain field, where the final treatment and dispersal into the environment happens. How does the septic system work? First, almost all of the water runs out of the house into the septic tank. Almost all means that if you have a water supply treatment device, like a water softener, that discharge should not go into your septic tank. What is a septic tank? A septic tank is a buried, watertight container, usually made of concrete, fiberglass, or polyethylene. A typical septic tank is 1,000 to 1,500 gallons for a single family of 4, receives typically about 200 gallons a day. As the wastewater flows through, the solids settle and the grease and the scum float, allowing relatively clear water to leave the septic tank. Note that putting 200 gallons a day into a 1,000 gallon tank means that the water moves very slowly, taking up to 5 days to move through the tank. A drain field is a shallow covered excavation made in unsaturated soil that is also commonly called a soil absorption system. For conventional systems, research shows that once in the drain field, most of the treatment that takes place in the soil happens in the top 2 feet underneath the system. While the treatment may be achieved in about 2 feet of soil in ideal conditions, if there is dispersal by gravity and therefore uneven spreading of the wastewater across the system, a deeper depth of unsaturated soil may be required for adequate treatment of the wastewater coming out of that septic tank. Requiring a minimum of 3 feet of separation provides a factor of safety, which may be needed at sites where drainage is limited. System designs can vary. We just showed what is also often called a conventional in-ground septic system, but in some locations with differing site conditions, it is common to need a raised system with a pump in order to overcome heavy soil and or high water table conditions. The purpose of the absorption field is to provide spreading of the wastewater across the entire area, provide extra storage during the surge or peak flow events, and to deliver wastewater to the soil, which is where most of the contaminants are removed prior to discharging to the groundwater. In this diagram, we see a cross-section of a trench system, and as we mentioned, the absorption field is a network of perforated pipe and stone. Also, the placement above the highest seasonal groundwater is very important, as the naturally occurring bacteria that treat our wastewater do not live below the water table. Let's talk about the purpose of the soil beneath the absorption field. The soil provides treatment of the wastewater through biological, chemical, and physical processes, but only if the soil environment remains aerobic, meaning oxygen-rich and not saturated. Now you know what a septic system is, but where is it? It's not always so easy to find a system as it is in these 2 photos to the right. If you don't know where your system is, first, it's always good to call MISTIG before investigating your system location. No one wants to hit a gas line. Second, your local health department may have records for the system. There is the potential that if the home is older, that there may not be records on the file, or the records may be difficult to interpret. Another thing you could do is contact a licensed septic hauler, also known as a pumper, system installer, or system evaluator to assist in locating your system. If you or other professionals cannot locate the system, it's better not to assume that the system even exists. It is possible that the home has a historical illicit connection. Connections or discharges to storm sewers, county drains, surface waters, etc., are harmful to the environment and pose health risks to the community. Septic systems should not be out of sight, out of mind. Routine inspections and pumping as needed are important for maintaining the system and making sure that it's working. Catching a problem early on can save you costly repairs or replacement bills. Now I'm passing over to Anne for her portion of today's presentation.
Good morning, everyone. As mentioned earlier, my name is Ann Mitchell, and I am the program manager for the Septic Replacement Loan Program here at Eagle, which we will be talking more about in just a few minutes. But before I get started, I want to thank everyone for being here today. We had over 1,600 registrants for this webinar this morning, and we have over 750 people on this call right now listening. I think that is incredible. We appreciate your eagerness to learn more about septic systems, and we appreciate your time and attention this morning. I think that's awesome. It shows that Michiganders care about our environment and our people and protecting them, and that's really exciting to us here at Eagle. So Marissa just gave us a ton of great information on what septic systems are, how they work, what is SepticSmart. How can we find them? And now I'm going to sort of switch gears and talk about things that we can do as septic system owners daily in our homes to keep these systems functioning as long as possible. So, as part of the SepticSmart campaign, the EPA developed this list of SepticSmart quick tips, and they are quick ways that you can remember how to protect and maintain your system to support its functionality and longevity. I'm not going to read through this list because we're going to go through each tip individually. So we're going to start it out. Go ahead and go next slide. Thank you. With think at the sink. And you're going to see a trend as we move through this list. And really the trend is mindfulness and awareness. What are we putting down our drains? And how is that going to impact our septic system? So anytime you're flushing or washing something down or using a lot of water, it's really important to just take a quick pause and think, what am I putting into my septic system right now? And how is it going to impact it? So thinking at the sink sounds exactly what it is. Thinking when you're at your kitchen sink. And what are some things that we want to remember? You don't want to pour cooking grease or oil down your sinks or toilets, coffee grounds, food waste, using a garbage disposal, as we mentioned earlier in the presentation. These are all things that we want to avoid because they're adding extra solids into our system. They're adding, in some cases, medications or chemicals we also want to avoid. We don't want to add those things into our septic system. But what you do want to do is eliminate or limit the use of garbage disposals, properly dispose of your coffee grounds and foods in the trash, and consider putting your grease in a container to harden before you put it into the trash, rather than dumping it down that drain. And then don't strain your drain. So again, being really mindful of our water use in our homes. Don't concentrate your water use by using your dishwasher, your shower, your washing machine, and your toilet all at once. All that extra water can really put a strain on your septic system. So what you want to make sure that you're doing is staggering your use of water generating appliances. This can be really helpful, especially if your system has not been pumped in a long time or during those really wet times of the year. So when we're having a lot of snow melt, we're getting a lot of rain, generally in the springtime here in Michigan, you want to be really mindful of how much water are we using at once, and you want to spread those things out. So rather than do 5 loads of laundry in a day, you want to kind of spread that out throughout the week. And then you can also consider becoming more water efficient by not only fixing plumbing leaks within your home, but installing water efficient products and appliances. And just a fun little tidbit, a leaking toilet valve, which doesn't sound like a big deal. We've probably all encountered one at one point or another, discharges about 2 gallons per minute and can result in just under 3,000 gallons of water in one day going into our septic system. Keep in mind, these systems are generally designed for a peak flow of 350 to 450 gallons a day. So getting an extra 3,000 gallons a day from just one leaking toilet is a huge deal and can have really harmful impacts on your system. So those kind of things that seem small actually have a big impact and should be addressed. Keep it clean. So if you have a well, they're susceptible to environmental contamination from all sorts of sources, but a failing septic system is definitely one of those potential sources of contamination. It's really important to test your water regularly. So if you live in an area then you're not sure what to test for, I recommend calling your local health department, asking them how you can get bottles and what specifically you should be looking to test for. That should be done on an annual basis. Shield your field. I can't even count how many times I've gone out to a home and there are cars parked on the drain field, or someone wants to put a new above ground pool on their drain field, or a patio or a deck. All of these things are heavy and they can damage not only the pipes, but they can compact the soil in and around the drain field. So it's really important to keep that area free of any heavy equipment, any heavy traffic. And then we also want to be careful of what sort of landscaping we're doing around our drain field. So planting trees or shrubs too close can lead to root intrusion and can cause serious damage in the long term. So before you're doing anything, having an addition put on, thinking about that pool, or maybe having a big party where you know you're going to need some extra parking space in your yard, it's really important to consult a septic service professional to advise you not only of the proper distance for your landscaping needs, but also on the location of your system. And knowing right where that is can help you to make sure that you're protecting it. Don't overload the commode. So again, what are we putting down our drains? What are we flushing down the toilet? It's really important to not flush non-degradable products or chemicals such as hygiene products, condoms, dental floss, diapers, contacts, cigarette butts, cat litter, paper towels, pharmaceuticals, or dun dun dun, flushable wipes. Flushable wipes, I know that they say that they're flushable, but they do not readily or sufficiently break down in a septic tank, and we're seeing widespread problems all over the state, not only with septic systems, but with municipal systems as well related to flushable wipe use. So those things should all be going in the trash rather than down your toilet. Protect it and inspect it. It's really important to have your septic system inspected every 3 years by a licensed septic hauler and have your tank assessed to determine if pumping is necessary. If the volume of solids in your tank is greater than 1/3 of the total volume of the tank, then that's when we need to have things pumped. And this sort of just plays on what I just said. But if you are having your system inspected on that frequency and it's determined that you need to have your tank pumped, it's really important that you do that again when the solids exceed 1/3 of the tank volume. So septic tank pumping, why is it important? Well, for operational efficiency, the typical retention time in your septic tank may be 3 to 5 days. However, when that tank isn't pumped regularly and the tank is, let's say, half full of solids, that reduces the retention time, causing water to move faster and then carrying more solids out into your drain field, which reduces the efficiency of the system. And I think that this is a good way to put this into perspective. So pumping your septic tank generally costs between $300 and $500. However, if you allow the solids to build up in your tank and then pass on to the drain field, the cost to replace a drain field could range anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 or more, depending on what's required and how intense the damage is. So pumping your septic tank really is comparable to getting an oil change with your car. It's a small maintenance item, it's a small routine cost, and it can help prevent a really big and expensive problem in the future. And this chart is just a good, it shows how often you should pump your tank because there are a lot of variables when making that decision. And technically it depends on the amount of solids accumulation. And like we talked about, our little rule of thumb is when solids take up 1/3 of your tank volume, you should have your tank pumped. But if you're not adding additional solids, so you're not using a garbage disposal or you're not dumping kitty litter down, then this chart also shows the pumping frequency that you should follow based on the size of your tank and the number of people in your home. So a common approach is to pump every 2 to 5 years, and you can see that a majority of this chart kind of falls within that time frame. What happens if you don't pump your tank? If you don't pump your tank, solids accumulate to the point of moving them out into the drain field, which shortens the system life and can potentially lead to a failing drain field. And what that means is you can potentially have sewage backing up not only onto the surface, the ground surface in your yard, but also into your home. So some early signs of problems are gurgling or slow drains, saturation around the septic tank or drain field, and backups into the lowest drains of your home. If you're seeing really squishy, lush, wet spots in your yard or on your drain field during dry times of the year, that can be an indication that there's a problem. If not addressed, septic system failures can cause illness and or contaminate the surface or groundwater. Like we just said, they can contaminate residential wells. So we will link the EPA page about how to address system malfunctions and failures later in the presentation for you to look into. And now I'm going to switch gears again, and I'm going to give a little bit of information about this septic replacement loan program that you've heard me mention a few times already this morning. So go ahead and next slide. So this program started with the Michigan legislature appropriating $35 million to the Eagle On-Site Wastewater Management Unit to develop and implement a loan program to replace failing and near failing septic systems statewide. Eagle contracted with nonprofit Green Bank Michigan Saves to help develop the septic replacement loan program, SRLP as I commonly refer to it as. It is a two-tiered financing program. So there's an income-based loan, which is called the Tier 1, and then a market-based loan, which is called Tier 2. Next slide. So some general provisions of this program. These are unsecured personal loans for individuals owning residential dwellings. These loans are for sites with a documented failing, near failing, non-existent septic system, or similarly inadequate system. And that failure or inadequacy is to be determined and or confirmed by local health department staff only. Replacement systems that are funded through the SRLP must be evaluated, permitted, and installed with Eagle's program minimum standards. Next slide. So authorized contractors, any contractor wishing to participate in the SRLP must register as an authorized contractor through Michigan Saves, which requires some proof of liability insurance, being in good standing with your local health department, being in good standing with Laura, and going through some required training. So Michigan Saves is currently recruiting and registering authorized contractors all over the state, and you can see we have 72 contractors fully authorized statewide, with over 50 contractor applications still being reviewed, processed, and kind of finalized. This QR code will take you to a really great tool on Michigan Save's website where you can see all of the contractors statewide on this map, and it's interactive. So you can click on any of these little buttons and get all the contact information for that specific contractor. As you can see in this image, we have really great statewide coverage. There's a lot of options for homeowners looking to participate. Next slide. So some eligible costs for projects within the loan program include evaluation of system design, pumping, and then installation. And then some projects that are not eligible for funding through the loan program include lagoons, dry wells, cisterns, any new construction projects. So this is again for replacement projects only. Restoration services, so the aeration, options that we see sometimes, those are not eligible for funding. And then replacement of existing municipal sewer connections. So if you're somebody who's on city sewer and you need to replace that line, that's not eligible for funding through this program. And then any pump and haul systems or holding tanks. So the next couple slides, I'm going to just give a little bit more specific information on each of these loans and some of the underwriting criteria. So for the Tier 1, again, that's the income qualified loan. You have to meet the income criteria, which is listed on the Michigan Saves website. I think I saw that link go into the chat, but if not, it's at the end of this presentation and will be provided in the follow-up email. So you need to meet the income criteria, and proof of income will be required or requested. And then the loan structure. So these are unsecured personal loans. So there's no lien or collateral required. Loan amounts can vary from $1,000 to $30,000. The Tier 1 folks have an interest rate that is locked in at 1% with loan terms up to 10 years. And then our Tier 2 is a market-based loan. So this is for those homeowners who don't meet the income requirements of the Tier 1, and traditional underwriting criteria apply. But again, unsecured loans, no lien or collateral required. For this one, loan amounts vary from $1,000 to $50,000, and then fixed interest rates that vary by lender. So right now, I think the lowest is a 7.5% interest rate, and again, loan terms up to 10 years. So the sort of the process for all customers before applying for any loan through the SRLP, the customer must first obtain their local health department construction permit, and that needs to be in accordance with the septic replacement loan program minimum standards and guidelines. And then they also need to select a Michigan Saves authorized contractor. I think it's important to note, and I didn't note it earlier, if you are somebody who wants to participate in this program and you already have a contractor that you have been talking to or working with, or that you really like and trust, and they are not an authorized contractor, that happens on a rolling basis. So they can easily become authorized. It doesn't take a lot of time. There's no fee. So you could still work with any contractor of your choice. They just have to go through some training and provide some documents to us before we can have them participate. And then the homeowner needs to agree to the bid price from the contractor. So once you have your permit, your contractor, and your bid, then you complete that loan application online. You enter all of your household information, which will sort of bump you either into the Tier 1 or the Tier 2, and then the lender will reach out if additional information is needed. Generally, the Tier 1 applicants find out about whether or not they're approved within 3 to 5 business days once that income has been verified. And then the tier 2 applicants, it's usually within 24 to 48 hours. So it's pretty quick. So progress to date, we launched at the end of May. Both tier 1 and tier 2 loans became available to Michigan homeowners. And so far we have over 150 loan applications. We've installed 47 replacement systems that have been approved by local health department staff, fully funded, and over $1.3 million in approved loans. Again, for more information related to the septic replacement loan program, Michigan Saves website is going to have everything that you're looking for. This is the link here. This orange button at the top right-hand corner is how you can look at all the contractors in your area and browse all the information they have. They have the income requirements. They have the application process outlined again on their website. And it's a really great resource for anyone who's interested or may know of somebody who's interested. So with that, what did we learn today? Well, we learned the importance of maintaining our septic system. So inspecting your system, having that tank pumped regularly, being really mindful and aware of what we're putting in and around our systems, repairing our leaky fixtures and watching our landscaping and vegetation, using low suds, biodegradable, and low phosphate free soaps and detergents. And then we also talked about the importance of testing your well regularly. So with this, I'm going to share we're just going to go through a few online resources that are available to you, that are available to everybody, that are really helpful as far as septic system information and maintenance information and what to do if you are having issues. So Eagle developed a SepticSmart website to provide easy access to SepticSmart resources for both organizations and homeowners. And that's linked right here. And in that, there are several links and resources in the form of flyers, postcards, draft proclamations, and more. So this is the list of resources from the Eagle website, and the topics range from new home buyer brochures to rental property flyers or flyers for campgrounds and some information for tribal communities. So there's a lot of really good stuff there that I encourage you all to explore when you have a moment. And then the EPA has their SepticSmart webpage that has even more materials and resources. So again, lots of great infographics and information housed there, both in Spanish and English. And they have more languages that they're working on adding. So really, really great stuff. And then some other resources about septic systems that are sort of outside of that SepticSmart campaign. The EPA has a page with a lot of good information about different types of systems and training materials such as webinars. As I mentioned, the Eagle On-Site Wastewater Management Program has its own page that has a lot of really great information and access to state rules and also access to our webinars. So this webinar will be linked on that page. There's also a link related to the septic replacement loan program there. So a lot of really great stuff. And then the National On-Site Wastewater Recycling Association, or NOWRA, has developed a homeowner training materials for septic systems. This is a go at your own pace module that covers everything that you would need to know about a system as an owner or an operator. And then last but not least, Michigan State Extension has developed a page for homeowner education about septic systems. So those are all linked here, and we encourage you to check them out. So what can you do? Well, I think we've learned maintenance and checking your septic system is critical to protecting your septic system, and encouraging your neighbors and your communities to do the same is a really great start to keeping Michigan's people and waters safe. So with that, I think we are going to turn it over and try to answer some of your questions. It looks like we have a lot of them in the Q&A. And Marissa's going to pop back on and hopefully we can address some of those.
Let me see. Yeah, we do have a decent amount in here. And some of you might have had your questions answered by our coworkers. They're in the chats. They've left some of them for us to answer on the video, but a lot of you would have gotten individual chats for your questions. So one of the first questions is, the video says not to use a garbage disposal. Why? So Anne got into this a little bit, but garbage disposals grind up the food. I mean, that's what they're supposed to do. And when you're doing that, it makes them really fine and small, and they have a really hard time settling out. So what happens is you have all these little bits of food floating in your septic tank that won't settle out into the sludge layer. And then they really readily just go straight out into your drain field. So garbage disposals and coffee grounds have the same problem. You don't even have to grind them up. They're already there. So if you wash those down, they don't settle out, and then they can end up in your drain field and clog soil pores, which are very small and easy to clog. So do you want the next question, Ann?
Yeah. I
Okay.
thought this the private septic system question. I'll address that. I thought
Sure.
private septic systems were no longer permitted. The client I had invented wanted to disconnect from the county and put his own septic system, but was not allowed. Has that changed? So it sounds like there's a lot of variables in that situation specifically that we would maybe need more information on. But private septic systems are still permitted widely across the state. In that situation, it sounds like maybe there was a municipal option, in which case public health code requires that they connect.
Yeah. Okay. Next question is, where should water softener regeneration water go if not into the septic tank? Generally, homeowners will have it'll have its own little system. So like you could do some kind of drain, French drain, dry well. It has a lot of salt in it, and some science says that salt will impact the settling in your tank as well. So best practice is to have it discharged somewhere else. It's not wastewater that needs to be regulated by the health department, so it could just go on the ground, but generally you want it below ground so it's not causing a wet spot in your yard or killing your plants with the salt. So
That looks like it knocked two out at once.
yeah.
So the next question is throwing small dead animals into the tank a good practice to keep level of organisms high? No. So your system will stay healthy just by your general use, using it as intended, not putting, you don't need to add any extra. I know that there's also a lot of products out there that say they will rejuvenate or sort of revive bacterial populations in a septic system. You don't need to put anything down other than what's natural. Human waste is all it needs. So we don't need to add any dead animals or any alternative products.
All right. I have another question is a distance of 75 feet between drinking water well and septic field a safe distance? So the minimum requirement statewide through the well regulations for a private well, meaning single family well to a single family septic system, is 50 feet. So that in most areas, 75 feet would meet your minimum. That question could also be a little bit loaded because it depends. If your well is really shallow or if your septic system is failing, that might not be enough. But generally speaking, if you have, a properly constructed well and a properly constructed septic system, that will meet minimum requirements and you should be safe.
Okay, I see one related to the loan program, so I'm going to take that. We have a home on a lake. We were told loans are not available for those on lakes. Is that true? And if so, why not? That is not true. The loan program is available to lake properties. There are certain requirements as far as meeting isolation to the lake, so we need to make sure that we're protecting those lakes. But they are eligible. So if you have questions specific to that, feel free to reach out. My contact information is in the presentation, and I'd be happy to talk with you a little bit more about that.
We have a question. Should you have a garden over your septic system? Generally speaking, no. We don't really want anything over a septic system that has roots. Roots are a leading cause of failure in the state of Michigan. I think they're the second most common cause of failure. So the roots, you want to keep generally at least 10 feet away from the edge of your drain field. The other thing, especially root vegetables, you probably don't want to be eating like a carrot that has been growing essentially in your drain field. I wouldn't personally do that. So best practice is to keep gardens, vegetable gardens and regular gardens 10 feet away from the edge of your drain field.
Okay, here's another loan program question. If I have a septic system grandfathered in and want to upgrade to current standards, am I eligible for the loan program? If that existing septic system meets the definition of failure, then yes, and it would need to be installed in accordance with the program minimum standards that were developed by Eagle and local health departments specifically for the loan program.
Okay. So we have a question about putting dishwashers and washing machine discharge into the septic system. Detergents are designed to kill bacteria. This seems contradictory to the function of a septic system. So that could be true. So there are detergents that are labeled septic safe that we would recommend you use. You don't want to use a lot of things that are really intended to kill bacteria. Generally speaking, though, laundry detergents aren't actually going to kill a lot of bacteria. They wash it off for sure, but they aren't always antibacterial or something to that effect. If you're using a lot of bleach, then definitely. So it's all in moderation. Using a small amount of bleach is not going to hurt your septic system. It's actually worse to use quaternary ammonias. Those are they're non-bleach. People like them because they don't smell as bad, but those are much worse for the bacteria in your drain field. So especially if you're a restaurant owner, quaternary ammonias are pretty popular because they're one of the sanitizers you're allowed to use. Consider maybe using bleach instead, actually. So
Okay, could you cover how to get water testing done annually on a well? Kits are available at the county office. Yeah, so I would first always direct somebody who's interested in sampling their well to call their local health department to not only get some advice on what to sample for, but where to obtain the appropriate bottles. So they may some local health departments keep bottles on hand, and others use either private laboratories or the state of Michigan drinking water laboratory. So they can give you instructions based on your location that are going to be the easiest and best fit for you.
all right. We have someone asking for links to the resources in the chat, and I'll lean on my coworkers that are answering questions on the side. If they could do that, that would be wonderful. So sometimes it's hard to remember when our tank was last inspected pumped. Our local septic pumper suggested a minimum of every 4 years and used the presidential election as a reminder. That's a good way to remember. You could use any kind of thing that happens every 4 year cycle, 3 year cycle. Another thing that's possible is that they do have on the EPA, one of the resources is that you could have a little card that you write down where the last time you had it pumped was. Just like you're getting an oil change. Like it's good to just record somewhere the last time you did it. There's also SepticSmart magnets that we have. If you see Eagle at farmers markets and whatnot, often we'll have those, and you can have a magnet on your fridge. So yeah, anytime you can remember to do it, that's good. So there's a lot of questions here, and we'll get through as many as we can, but we will probably have to answer some questions through email after. So
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, because you guys are all there's so many, which is exciting. We like that.
yes.
But we, for the sake of time, probably won't be able to get through all of them. Okay, let's see. I see a lot, and we did kind of mention this, but I just want to make sure that it's clear regarding additives like Ridex. And again, we don't recommend using those products. They're not necessary. And that seems to be a pretty frequently asked question in this chat. So
Yeah. Another question about roots is, do we recommend using a root be gone in the system as preventative to reduce the chance of root intrusion? So root be gone will actually only kill roots that are already there. So it won't prevent them from growing into your system. You would have to, it goes down and it would kill what's already there. It doesn't actually remove the roots either. So it doesn't necessarily solve the problem. If your system is full of roots, it'll kill it from growing more in that time. But they'll still be there. So if it's clogging the system, they have to almost be manually removed or the system has to be replaced. So the best way to prevent roots from getting into your system is to make sure nothing is growing on or near your drain field.
okay, let's see. I see a few questions regarding the income levels for the loan program. So those are housed on the Michigan Saves website. They have a really great chart that outlines those levels or sort of benchmarks. It's based on household size. If that hasn't already been linked in the chat, I will do that so you guys can go and check those out.
Let's see. What is the definition of a septic system failure, Anne, for this SRLV? Yeah.
Should I read it verbatim?
Sure.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, give me just a second. Let me pull it up so I make sure that I'm doing it.
Okay. I'll find another question while we're doing
Yeah.
that. Is using white vinegar acceptable in a washing machine laundry cycle? Yes. I don't think white vinegar will impact the bacteria in your septic tank. So how do you locate a tank that doesn't show above ground and isn't in the county records? So oftentimes a septic pumper or a septage hauler would be the best person to look for those. They might have a camera, they might have a GPS unit. There's flushable GPS units. They can flush down your septic tank and track it basically or flush down your toilet and track it to your septic tank. So sometimes they can find it that way, or scopes, cameras. You can also attempt to try to use like a metal detector. If you don't have a lot of buried metal in your yard, you might be able to find the lid has like metal handles, but septic haulers are usually the best at finding septic tanks. They're good at it. So.
Okay, I'm going to hop in with the official definition of failure. So a system is considered to be failing when sewage backs up into the home or structure, discharges onto the ground surface, contaminates surface water or drinking water supplies. Any part of the system is bypassed. The system is the source of an illicit discharge, meaning there's no drain field. There is an absence of a septic tank and absorption system, or there is a structural failure of a septic tank or other associated appurtenances. So it kind of covers a lot. It's pretty broad.
Right. Is it okay to run your lawn sprinkler on the drain field? I would say that depends, because I have, as a professional in the field, seen a sprinkler that very likely impacted the system and resulted in its failure. But that's because they were really over sprinkling. I think if you're only sprinkling when you need to, and you're not doing it when it rains, it's probably okay. We do recommend people not install over their drain field if they can avoid it, just because it's adding extra water. And your drain field might actually help keep your grass alive without using the sprinkler.
Okay. Under Michigan Saves Find Your Contractor, this is not an option for septic. So where do you get the list of approved contractors? So it is on there. If you click on that link to get to their website and you click Find Your Contractor, under that you need to select septic loan replacement and then again hit septic replacement before hitting search. And then that will be all of the septic contractors that are currently authorized.
All right. Is it bad for septic systems to clean out paintbrushes and paint sprayers used with latex paint? Yes, unfortunately. Yeah, we do not want to be washing down the drain any chemicals to that effect. They could help clog up your drain field. So it's better to try to wash paintbrushes outside on the grass or something, even though I know that probably causes a mess, but it's better not to put it down your drain.
We have a few questions on the availability of slides. We will be sharing these slides after the presentation, and this is recorded. So the link to this recording will also be shared with everyone who is registered, and you can share that as you please.
Yeah. So are there techniques and or service companies for removal from septic lines? Generally that involves completely replacing your pipes and sometimes also the stone. So it's not a cheap process. So again, it's really prevention is the best mechanism for root removal. Try not to have them in the system. All right. Well, we're coming up here. Maybe we have time for a couple more questions.
Who is responsible for pulling the work permit for any work being performed on your system? The homeowner would be responsible, but in some cases, the contractor that you're working with will offer to do that. So that's kind of dependent on who you choose to work with for that one. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately your responsibility as the homeowner and as the system owner to make sure that you have the permits that are required within your county.
Yeah, right. We'll do one more question and then we will give it to Matt to close us out. So are phosphorus and nitrates eliminated by your septic system? So they're not eliminated. They can be reduced significantly by your septic system if it is designed appropriately. So nitrates require aerated soil. So if your septic system is, for example, in the groundwater, then the nitrates cannot be removed. So if your system is designed appropriately, nitrates and phosphorus will be reduced for sure. If you have an alternative treatment system that purposefully removes nitrates or phosphorus, then we know that it's being removed. But yeah, a general septic system, if designed appropriately, will reduce it, but they will not eliminate it. And yeah, I think that's probably most of the big questions being answered. If we have missed your question, we will email you. We do have your contact information through the registration. So we will follow up with you guys if we've missed your question.